quick question.
Sure, yes. Yes.
My son got as a table tennis attachment as a gift. Could we use it on Shabbat? It's one with just clamps to each side of the table, and you just play ping pong. Is that something we can do on Shabbat?
Sure, definitely. No problem whatsoever. Definitely no problem. The only thing is I wouldn't spend too much time playing ping pong on Shabbat just because in general, the Shabbat is meant more for family time, more for rest, more for thought and singing and some learning and some davening. That's what Shabbat is really meant, and not to spend too many hours on what seems like more of a weekday activity. So it's okay if you play half an hour.
I'm sure it won't last more than 3 minutes. He doesn't really have any coordination to play, but he is excited. So I'll be like, okay, tomorrow we're going to be busy, but on Shabbat we can try. So at least I know we can try. Don't have to wait till Sunday. But no. He will give up before we even get anywhere.
Leah, send him up the road. We have a ping pong table in our garden. I'm sure my boys will be delighted to have someone else to play with.
But that's what I'm saying. He has 2 left hands. It's not going to work for him.
Even better, they'll win.
Every single.
Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe this can help him coordinate a little bit. It's a good thing to try. Learn how to coordinate his hands.
Can I ask a Purim-related question?
Yes, sure.
Because of the way Shabbos and Purim is working out this year, I'm encouraging my kids to give out all their Mishloach Manot except for the one mitzvah portion on Friday, just because I'm nervous about fitting everything in. We're leaving for Jerusalem before Shabbat comes in.
Wow.
And it's a busy day. So we're going to have an early morning Suda. My husband was appalled at the idea of having anything milky. He said he was embarrassed that I'd even brought up the idea of it.
Okay.
So anyway, but what I wanted to know was, because of that, Matthew and I, for our Mishloach Manot, normally we give a few. This year we decided to give, one as the mitzvah. And so I wanted to know, if I know that I'm giving someone, usually I give my neighbors surrounding me, none of them are religious at all. Usually I give them on the basis that they won't receive from anyone else. So it's sort of more worthwhile in a way. But I can be as certain as possible that they will not make brachot over what I give them. So have I then not really fulfilled the mitzvah? Because even if I give them the correct 2 brachot worth in the food in the parcel, if no bracha is made, does that mean that I haven't fulfilled that aspect of the mitzvah? No connection to the mitzvah. The fact that it's a bracha, that bracha is made or not made. Actually, I must say, it's not really a necessity to have 2 different brachot in the basket. You can have 2 types of food as long as it's 2 different tasting foods. With the same bracha, it's still considered 2 portions of Mishloach Manot. It doesn't. I always thought it had to be. That's mind blowing for me. I always thought it had to be 2 different brachot.
No. I'll tell you what. The Rambam.
That's so interesting, because I also only heard. So if I give a drink, which is charcoal, and a piece of and a chocolate bar, I was told that you don't fulfill the mitzvah.
No, you totally fulfill the mitzvah that way, totally. Just from a different point of view, the mitzvah is mainly meant for helping people have food for their Suda. That's really what Mishloach Manot was meant to be. And that's why, by the way, in Yerushalayim this year, they have a Purim Mishulash, a 3-day Purim. On Friday, they do the Kriyas Megillah and Matanot Levyonim. On Shabbos, they do Al Nisim and all their prayers and Birkas Hamazon. And the Vayavam Amalek, the laning of the Parsha of Purim. And on Sunday, they do the feast, the Suda, and Mishloach Manot. What's the connection between the Mishloach Manot and the Suda? Why don't they have everything, the Mishloach Manot on Friday as well, like they have the Matanot Levyonim? So the answer is, because the Mishloach Manot is meant to serve as a filler, for like to have plentiful food for the Suda, we're helping each other have more food for the Suda. That's why it's connected to the Suda on Sunday for Yerushalmi and not to the Kriyas Megillah on Friday. So in any case, that was just an example to show they were meant to give something that will help people for the Suda. Now, a chocolate bar and drink is very delicious and yummy to receive, but there's no connection to the Suda. You're not going to eat that in the Suda. Now, I know that today it's very, very customary to send sweets and cakes and things like that, although cake is can definitely be part of a Suda. It could be the dessert, the last course. But some people just send really all kinds of candies and chocolate bars and snacks, which definitely don't serve in any way as part of the Suda. That still works. It's not that, I'm not trying to say that you haven't fulfilled the mitzvah. You fulfill the mitzvah after all, because there are two reasons for Mishloach Manot. One is, like I said now, to help each other have plenty of food for the Suda. And the other reason is Ahava v'reut, just to express your affection, your love, your kindness one to another, to each other.
Sorry, is there any element to it also to give it to somebody who actually needs the food? Because what I was told, it's a mitzvah to give to actually somebody who's needy and will really appreciate that food than to your friend who is fine.
No, I would say, no, specifically there, it's not, it wasn't defined that way, that the Mishloach Manot should go to needy. That's what we have the Matanot Le'Evyonim. That's what it's meant. Matanot Le'Evyonim is meant for the needy. And by the way, there too, the main purpose of Matanot Le'Evyonim is not to raise or delete the minus in their bank account. It's not the main purpose of Matanot Le'Evyonim either. It's tzedakah money, true, but it's meant to help them have a meal for Purim. It all surrounds this issue of the Suda. Why is the Suda so important on Purim? Because the whole miracle happened due to the Suda. It's to remind us of Sudat Esther and Achashverosh and Haman, where she invited them to the feast, only them, those two men, in order to create a jealousy of Achashverosh, to be jealous of Haman. What's going on? My queen is inviting me and one other man to her feast. What is he, my competitor? Is he a secret lover of my wife? And then he got all mad. And that was the end of Haman. She was very smart, the trick she played. And by the way, some explain, if we're already on this topic, some explain something very amazing. She invited them first time to a meal. And then the Achashverosh said, what would you like to ask? What's your request? So she says, well, if it's okay, let's meet again tomorrow. The three of us. I want to have another meal, and then I'll tell you what I want. Why did she do that? Why did she first have them come first meal and then have this anticipation for another meal for the following day and then tell him what the whole issue is? So some say that that's what exactly caused the whole miracle to happen. Because the night between those 2 days, in the night between, that was the crucial night where it says, but Balayla hu nadeda shnat hamelech. Even the Torah raises his voice when he reads those words, because that's really the beginning of the turnover, of the v'na'afochu, of the whole scheme. So what happened that night? Why was he restless? Why was Achashverosh not falling asleep? The reason is because all he has in his head now, what's going on? She loves Haman? Is he a secret lover? Is she betraying me? Is he my competitor? She invited only me and him to a private meal. So he was thinking of that. That's the reason he couldn't fall asleep. So and she's inviting him again for the meal tomorrow. What's going on? It's only me and her that should be close, with such close relationship. Does she have such a close relationship with Haman? And that's what made him uneasy. He couldn't fall asleep because he was becoming so jealous or so kanai, zealous, you say, with a Z, for himself. He wanted her for himself only. And since he couldn't fall asleep, he then heard, first of all, they read to him the book of memories, and they got to Mordechai that saved his life, and then he heard someone in the backyard, it happened to be Haman, calls him in, what should I do to a person who I would like to show my appreciation? And then all the rest of the story goes on. And then he's so mad at Haman the next day, when he comes to that private feast, that he orders to kill him. So back to our point, the Suda really comes to resemble that turning point of the whole story and how we were saved due to the trick that Esther played on Haman. And by the way, he thought he's the proudest man on earth. Only I was invited. He comes home and says so proudly, only I was invited to the feast with the king and queen. Little did he know that that's exactly the reason he's going to find his death, because only he was invited. So we see how Hashem works in this world is unbelievable, beyond imagination. Hashem uses those moments where a person thinks he's on cloud nine. In the end, it turns out that those moments themselves are hell for him. Really, that's the end of him. So it's unbelievable. Anyhow, so we eat our meal, our feast, to resemble and to remind us of the miracle that occurred through that feast. That's why it's so important. So we give the Mishloach Manot to help each other to have a plentiful meal. We give the Matanot Levyanim for the needy, so that they should have food for the meal. It's all around the Suda. And we read the Megillah Esther to explain to us what was the miracle and how it occurred and how it's the meal is so centralized within that whole scheme with all that happened, all that occurred in those days. So it's all around that, revolving around that. And therefore, the Mishloach Manot should better if it's something that can be eaten in a meal. Like if you give cake is fine. If you give some kugel or challah, a home-baked challah, things of that sort, that's mamish food for the meal. In the Rambam describes Mishloach Manot in a way that we never ever give each other. The Rambam speaks about shnei minei basar, 2 types of meat. That's the Mishloach Manot, mamash for the meal. And by the way, this again proves what I said before, that there's no necessity to have 2 different brachos, because 2 types of meat are both she'akol. And according to Rambam, that's a totally perfect and fine Mishloach Manot. It just has to be of 2 different tastes. That is important. It can't be just that you made 1 chunk of meat, you split in 2, and here's your Mishloach Manot. No, that's all considered 1 manah. You need 2 different tasting foods, one from another, but doesn't have to be necessarily 2 different brachos. And then going back to Laura's question about the chilonim possibly or most probably not making brachos, it doesn't matter. The idea is not for the recipient to say a bracha or 2 brachos. The idea is for them to have food for the meal, or a plentiful meal. That's the whole idea. True that they may not use it for Sudat Purim, as is also true by us. We tend to not use any of the food we get from Mishloach Manot at our Purim feast. It's all frozen, kept frozen. Sometimes, unfortunately, thrown away because it's Pesach. So we had too much food in the freezer and get thrown away. Sometimes we eat it in the course of the next few days or weeks. Up until Pesach, we have some food to eat from the freezer. but it really doesn't serve most of us as food for the meal. But that's the point. That's one of the points. The other point is to be kind and nice to each other and show how we appreciate each other by begifting one another some nice foods. So it works anyhow. The only question I would raise with Chilonim is the issue of lifnei iver lo titen michshol. Because if we're giving them food and we know they're not going to say a bracha, so we're causing them to stumble. Lifnei iver lo titen michshol, to sin. Because they're going to eat the food we gave them without saying a bracha before and after. But that's something that the poskim have solved already a long, long time ago. The Beit Yitzchak talks about this around 150 years ago, and others. The reason we're allowed to do so, and by the way, this question can be raised in many different situations. For example, if a person owns a grocery store and sells food, it's impossible to prevent Chilonim from buying food in their grocery store. Whatever they buy, they're going to eat without saying a bracha. So being the owner of a grocery store, should you have a sign up for Dati'im only? For religious only? Chas v'chalila.
But what about sorry, I'm just interrupting. Sometimes you get Mishloach Manot that you don't want to eat. That you just receive Mishloach Manot that for some reason, like, it's sweets and this, and I personally don't want to eat them. So
yeah, that's a good question. So like the one who gave it to you.
Are they not fulfilling their mitzvah if I receive something and I don't want to eat it because I've got an abundance or it's just enough, and there's a limit to how much you can eat, especially on a Friday.
Right.
No. And I think also
sorry.
Yeah, go on. Go.
I remember hearing a shir a few years ago where one of, I can't remember which rabbi it was, but he said that like the junk that the kids get, like the nasty, food coloring, it's chemicals. He said that it's basically not food. Like when we talk about wasting food, it's not like even classified. There's nothing nutritious in it. So, and especially this year, like I've already told my children, anything that comes in that's unwrapped is going straight in the bin because it's not hygienic this year. I don't, kids very sweetly, go from like, I know I'm already on my dining room table, I've got like a conveyor belt of like, there's the bag and there's the crisps and then the biscuit and it's all being passed from hand to hand, but it's all wrapped. But I've said to them, anything that comes in the house this year that's unwrapped is going straight in the bin because, I mean, first of all, it's gross anyway, but also this year it's dangerous. So most of the junk, I always feel, at Shift Day, they have a big bin. I always feel sorry for the, what they call like the poor and needy. The poor and needy are going to be so ill after Purim because everyone turns out their junk and fills like this enormous like bin with like the worst kind of junk, and then turns it over to the poor people who probably don't have private dental care.
Right. No, it's really terrible. Really, really bad. No, that's true. So to answer Julia's question as well, no, so we said before, it's not that you must enjoy and consume and eat up the Mishlochei Manot in order for the person who gave them to fulfill his mitzvah. The idea is that it can be used, potentially it can be used for a Su'udah. The fact that you don't use it or don't eat it or not going to eat it at all, it's not his fault. He fulfilled his mitzvah by giving you the Mishlochei Manot. The use of it is just, it's your decision. You make your decision if you want to use it or not, if you want to eat it or not. But he fulfilled his mitzvah totally by giving you something that can be used for a meal. That's the idea. And by the way, Shlomo Zalman says that even if it's a diabetic person who cannot eat sugar health-wise, he just can't, he's not allowed to. And someone gives him a Mishloach Manot that's full of sugar, still the giver fulfills his mitzvah. Because the person who's diabetic can still enjoy by giving it to other family members or by giving it to his neighbor, as long as you feel the enjoyment of receiving from someone, even if you can't eat it, it's considered a Mishloach Manot. We said there are two reasons. One is to help you have a plentiful Su'udah, and the other is the kindness. So even a person who's not allowed to eat the Mishloach Manot, he appreciates the thought that someone gave it to him. So it works that way as well. I was just saying before that in order to fulfill the first reasoning of the Suda, so it should be better yet if you give something that can be helpful in a person's meal, can add to a person's meal. That's the idea in general. I know that many of us have forgotten, quote unquote, that that's the main goal of Mishloach Manot, and we give all kinds of sweets and candies and snacks and things of that sort. Still, it works. It's okay, but it's not the highest level of performing the mitzvah of Mishloach Manot. It's not because it doesn't help in any way to make the meal plentiful. Okay, so that's for that. Right, so we covered the questions. Or is there anything left to discuss?
I've got one more question. Sorry to be irritating.
Sure. No
in terms of Matanot Le'ev Yonim, usually my husband gives like on his behalf and on my behalf, and I think also for our teenagers. But I wanted to know if it's optimum that I give like personally or the kids give their contribution like physically rather than like through him.
So strictly halachically from point of view, it's the same difference. It's okay if he gives it in the name of everyone, includes everyone, as long it's very important to tell each and every family member, I'm going to give a certain amount of money in your name to this needy person. Important to let them know because it's after all their mitzvah and he's fulfilling it as a messenger, and a messenger must get permission or at least notify the one who supposedly sent him to do the mitzvah for them. That's why you should notify each and every child and yourself that he's giving this and this amount per child and for you to this needy person. That's strictly halachic, that's perfectly fine. And your yotzei lechatchila even, the mitzvah is fine that way. From the point of view of educational point of view, that when a child actually does the mitzvah on his own, or even for yourself, mitzvah bo yoteri b'shlucho. We always know that it's a greater mitzvah when you fulfill the mitzvah on your own and not send someone else to do it for you, in every mitzvah. And especially, it's super educational that the child actually hands over the money to the needy person. They actually experience it. They are involved. They have that chavaya. They remember it as an experience, as a special experience. It's something that sinks in their memory that they gave this person and he was happy with it and he thanked them. Hopefully, if the needy person is aware enough to thank for what he gets. So from that educational point of view, it's much better if they do it on their own. But from a strictly halachic point of view, it's okay if your husband does it for all, as long as he notifies everyone that he's done it for them. By the way, it's not so simple to find a needy person, especially Corona days, because they're not coming. They won't be allowed to enter many places.
But most of the shuls are doing like things that you can donate online, and you have to donate before like 8 o'clock in the morning, and they'll get it on the day delivered. And I thought that was kind of maspik, that's enough. And they're being a shaliach, and in a bit of a like sniut way, it's kind of nicer than kind of giving money to a poor person. Directly. It has a kind of it's beneficial for the person that's giving, and also for the person that is receiving, that they don't feel like someone all dressed up is giving them, I don't know. I think it's a nicer way to do it, and also much easier as well to just be able to it takes away the hassle. I know in the UK there would be tons of people collecting on the street or whatever, but it wouldn't, like, some of the time it would just be for, like, you know, different charities, Magen David Adom, and all different things, rather than to, like,
no, that's not
matanat, like Bavionim, to people that actually need
right,
that money for the day.
Right. No, you're right.
So I think it's okay to give by the shuls, like, you know, that's
sure.
Yeah.
Sure, perfectly fine, no question. As long as the shul actually distributing it to real needy people. Sometimes, like you said, sometimes they give it over to organizations which we have no idea who it gets to in the end, and that's not good. And we haven't fulfilled the mitzvah. It has to get on Purim day. It must be received already by a truthfully, sincerely needy family or person. But if the shul knows what it's doing, and I'm sure most shuls know what they're doing, and they'll do it properly, so it's fine. It's totally fine. You can donate a few days before, like today, tomorrow, and as long as it's distributed in your name, your money is distributed that day, Purim day.
Oh, that's good. So you could even do it today, and then it's ready for. Oh, brilliant!
Correct. All done. All done. You don't need to hassle on Purim itself, and you may forget. Definitely, you can do it today. Yep.
And what about, let's say you end up giving to somebody on the night? Can you fulfill your mitzvah on the night?
The night of Purim, you mean?
On Thursday night, you see a friend and you think, actually, it's easier if I give you your Mishloach Manot today than tomorrow, because tomorrow's a short day and I'm seeing you, I can see you now. Can I give it to you now?
No, so that doesn't work. The reason is because it says, Yemei mishteh v'simcha, u'mishloach manot ish lerev u'manot le'evanim. Yemei. From this Chazal learn that all 4 mitzvot, except for laying of the Megillah of the night, which is actually very interesting to realize this point. The laying of the Megillah Thursday night is of a lower level than the Megillah that's read Friday morning. The accomplishment of the mitzvah of hearing the Megillah that is written in Megillah Esther, that you have to read the Megillah, the accomplishment of that is only in the morning, only in the daytime of Purim. Same as the other 3 mitzvot. Yemei mishteh v'simcha u'mishloach manot ish lerev u'matanot le'evanim. Everything has to be the mishteh, the mishloach manot, and the matanot le'evanim all have to be during the day, specifically. If you do it, you give it at night, you have not fulfilled the mitzvah. Even if the person keeps the mishloach till the morning, doesn't matter. You have to give it to them in the daytime. And so is true for the Matanot Levanim, and so is true for the feast, and so is true for the listening, for the hearing of the Megillah. Reading the Megillah, the main mitzvah, the Megillah is in the morning, the daytime one. The nighttime before is only Rabbanan, it's only rabbinic, versus the day, which is Divrei Kabbalah. It's like the higher level, it's written in the Tanakh. Whereas Chazal, the rabbinic additional mitzvot that Chazal added, are all way later on in history, much later in history, past the Second Temple. No, actually, it was during the Second Temple that Chazal came up and established all their mitzvot. But Purim was before Second Temple time, and it's written in the Tanakh, so it's a higher level of a mitzvah, the Megillah in the morning versus the one at night. So yeah, it all has to be done today. And even though it's Shabbat, it's going to be a little bit hectic, but not the shame, with all the happiness involved, we'll be able to get through everything properly. Okay. Is that it? Or any more questions on Purim? Gladly. Fine to ask. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Just wanted, from the shir last week, you said about going into Yerushalayim over Purim. That would be on the first day of Purim, as in not the Sunday. So if whole Purim we're in Ra'anana and Sunday we're going to go to the zoo, I don't need to do anything, right? I'm keeping Ra'anana time.
Nothing. Only Ra'anana Purim. nothing for in Yerushalayim. You don't say, well, they don't say either Al Nisim on Sunday. All they do is have their Suda and a Mishloach Manos, the only two things that they have. And anyone coming from outside to Yerushalayim on Sunday does nothing. It's just a regular day for them. By the way, even if you come for Shabbat, like Laura just said that they're going to Yerushalayim for Shabbat, even then, you don't do anything of the Yerushalmi Purim. You don't say Al Nisim like they do. Well, the laning of Yavam Malek, you're anyway in Shul, so you're going to hear it second time. Those who are in Shul Friday morning will hear it once, and then Shabbos day again. But really, anyone that comes in after dawn of Friday dawn is what counts to decide whether you're Yerushalmi or you're of other towns. So if you're here in Ra'anana for Friday morning as of dawn, then that's it. Your Purim is only Friday and nothing left over for Shabbos and Sunday, no matter when you get there. So it's very simple in this case. That's what we do. By the way, very interestingly, for the Yerushalmim, it's very awkward. The Sudat Purim is on Sunday, like we said, in Mishloach Manot, yet the Al Nisim is on Shabbos, because that's their true day of Purim. The Tvav Adar is Shabbos. So it turns out that they're going to eat their Purim feast, bench Birkat HaMazon, and not say Al Nisim. While they're eating their Purim feast, that's the feast that we thank Hashem for all those miracles. And yet, during Birkat HaMazon of that feast, they will not be saying Al Nisim. Very awkward. But that's how it turns out in Yerushalayim this year, the Purim Mishloach. Okay, but it has nothing to do with us. We are all in one day. We have it all on Friday. Package deal. Okay. So let's do a little bit of Hilchos Shabbos. In the new chapter we started last week, a little bit up.
Hello?
Yeah, I think you got disconnected.
Okay, it's not just me.
No.
Sorry about that. My computer jumped out of and finished the battery. It's only died. Okay, got it reconnected. Sorry. Thank you for bearing in. So as I said, we started the new chapter of in Hilchos Shabbos of the discussion all about electrical appliances on Shabbat. This is very, very, very practical. There are many, many, many dealings on Shabbat with such issues. So we started last week or the week before by an introduction of the issue of electricity in general. We'll quickly refresh our minds. I believe we did this. If not, then it won't be a repeat. It'll be the first time. I'll do it very quickly. About electricity in general, what's the issue of electricity on Shabbat? Why can't we turn on, turn off electricity? So the discussion is a three-way discussion. One is hav'ara, the other is boneh, and the third is molid. There's someone today, nowadays, Rosh Weiss, who holds that it also connects to makeh patish. We won't go into that right now. So in any case, the idea of mav'ir, hav'ara, is the burning element. We're not allowed to strike a match. We're not allowed to light a candle. We're not allowed to create a bonfire. Everything that has to do with lighting something is prohibited. So by electricity, the fact that there's something that gets turned on, that's not necessarily mav'ir. Mav'ir has to be a burning element. It has to be something that's burning, actually. So by electricity, it's mainly when we have filament bulbs. Used to be all our bulbs. Now it's almost none of them are no longer filament bulbs. But those that used to have that wire, they used to burn, and that's how it created light. And after a while, it burnt itself to death, and we had to switch bulbs. So that's Deoraita, according to all poskim. Anything that has a filament wire, we can turn on Shabbat, Deoraita. That's an Isser Deoraita of the Torah, because you're creating this burning element. It's also true for the spiral heaters. The ones that get reddened, you get red, burning hot. Those are also filament wires that get boiling, that burn. And that burning element is havara from the Torah. And same reason we can't shut it off, because that's called mechabeh. There's mav'ir and there's mechabeh. There is a lighting of the fire and extinguishing the fire. They're both two separate melachot on Shabbat. They're both, you mustn't do such a thing on Shabbat. That's one situation, but that only includes very few electrical appliances in our days. The other issue is boneh, which is also deoraita level, which is the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish held that closing a circuit, electrical circuit, the way you do when you turn on something or turn off, you're ruining, you're breaking the circuit, and turning on, you're closing a circuit. That's called boneh and soter. Again, two opposite melachot. They're both listed as two separate melachot, to build and to break. So to build a circuit, to create a circuit, that's deoraita from boneh point of view. You're building. And to shut the machine or the light or whatever it is, that's soter. You're breaking the circuit, you're breaking the building. On this, Rav Shlomo Zalman argued very, very much. He had letters back and forth with the Chazon Ish. He really didn't agree at all that this is considered boneh. We're not really building anything. It's all physics. It's something that's invisible. We can't see the electrons and protons or whatever runs in the wire that sort of closes a circuit and gets built and is built and then can work and function. It's all invisible. It's no building. It's meant to be used back and forth, over and over again. Usually we build something, so it's there to stay, permanent. This way, turning on, shutting off, turning on, shutting off all the time. He was very, very much disagreeable, I would say, with the Chazon Ish. So by Shlomo Zalman, it's really not a problem of boneh, although he says that we should try to be extra careful, because according to the Chazon Ish, he was a very, very big rabbi. So according to him, it's deoraita, so we have to be careful, more careful of electricity than we are of other rabbinic prohibitions. What is the point, according to Shlomo Zalman, that is problematic with turning on and off electrical appliances? It's molid. Molid is the fact that we're creating something new that before was shut off and now it's turned on. Even that's rabbinic prohibition. Even that's not so easy to understand. He was aware of this. He was aware of the fact that it's not easy to understand, because after all, you're not creating something new. It's just using the tool, the machine, whatever it is, you're using it. Turning on, turning off, turning on, turning off. You're not creating it from nothing. Molid is when you create something from nothing. But still, that's the only way you could explain why not to use electrical appliances on Shabbat, so you had to use that reason. And therefore, most of the electrical appliances are forbidden. Okay, now we also mentioned the fact that about Muktze, that not everything that's run by electricity is automatically Muktze. Shlomo Zalman and Moshe Feinstein both held, which is a huge leniency, by the way, they both held that it doesn't depend what makes it work, how it gets its energy and can function. That doesn't matter. What matters is, what does it do? If this machine or tool or whatever it is meant to do something that's prohibited on Shabbat, then it's Muktze. It's like a pen or a pencil, and if it's very expensive and you cherish it and you save it and you protect it from any harm, then it's a greater type of Muktze. Muktze mat chesron kis. So that's true only for, let's take for example, an electric saw. So a saw cuts wood, which is of course a melacha of Shabbat, d'oraita melacha. You can't cut wood on Shabbat. So it turns out that this electric saw is muktze because it's used for non-permissible actions on Shabbat. But if we take, for example, a flashlight, or I remember there's a different word, a torch, right? The British English is a torch. American English is flashlight. By American English, the torch is when there's an actual fire burning from it, a big fire, large fire. You hold it by this handle, and there's a large fire coming out. That's a torch in American English. But if I recall correctly, in British English, the torch is what we call a flashlight. That's all mixed up. By the way, how did the British call that fire that you hold with a handle that's large fire? How would you call that? In British English, it's also a torch.
Is a bouton or something like that?
Yeah, like a balaton or something like that.
Or something.
Balaton. Oh, okay. So it's a totally different word. Okay. So I have to get used to it. So a torch, meaning a flashlight, is something that you don't use for a non-permissible action on Shabbat. All you want to do with it is to see where you're going. Or to search for something in the closet, you need the light. To use a light on Shabbat to see things, that's not a melacha. What type of melacha is it? You're not cooking, you're not cutting, you're not writing. No melacha involved. The fact that it's using a battery to run, that doesn't make it muktze. It's built into the device, and it works. Of course, you can't turn it on Shabbat or turn it off on Shabbat. That, of course, not. Because of molid, because you're doing something electronic on Shabbat. Bone chazonish. If it's a filament bulb, then it's the right of havara. All the things we said before, you can't turn it on and turn it off. But to move it when it's already on, from before Shabbat, you left it on, why not? Now, this is something very, very, very lenient in Shlomo Zalman and Moshe Feinstein's Shuvot, responsa, that one is allowed to carry a lit torch to wherever they need to see things on Shabbat. Now imagine you're going out in the street Friday night for tiyul, for a walk with your family, and it's dark. So someone left the torch on from before Shabbat. You go, take it with you in your hand, and you walk in the street on Friday night using it to see where you want to go. According to Shlomo Zalman and Moshe Feinstein, no problem. I'm sure a lot of people raise their eyebrows to see such a thing, especially if it's a good religious family. They see them holding a torch and walking in the street on Shabbat. But strictly halachically, according to Shlomo Zalman and Aaron Moshe Feinstein, who are huge poskim, it's allowed. There are poskim who disagreed. It's not agreed upon by all poskim, but it's definitely a very, very powerful team to rely on, these two huge rabbis. So that's maybe surprising, but that's halacha, true according to halacha. The same is also true, a fan that's working on Shabbat, and you want to move it somewhere else. Allowed. The fact that the fan is running air, is creating a circulation of air in the room, that has nothing to do with the malacha. What type of malacha is that? To move air is a malacha? No. The fact that it's running by electricity doesn't make the functioning of it non-permissible or prohibited. The function of this electrical device is permitted. So you can move it all around wherever you want. Besides the fact that you can move Litzol Gufo Mekomo. We said this, we explained this many times. You can move a real Muktze object, if it's that type of Muktze, that it's meant for non-permissible actions, you can move it for if you need the location where it's on, you can move it away with your bare hands. You don't need to use anything else, you just move it away. And if you need it to use for something permissible in Shabbat, like our famous example that comes from the Gemara, to use a hammer to crack nuts, that's also allowed. It's usually for permissible action. We're talking about this fan that's running on Shabbat, and you want to move it away, not because it's bothering you where it's situated, not because you want the air to direct the air somewhere else. Rather, you want to get away to get it away from infants, from little kids, so it shouldn't break. That's not allowed to move if it's a Muktze object, even if it's we can't move it away just to defend and protect the object. By the fan, you can, because it's not Muktze at all. There's nothing Muktze about a fan. It's just circulating the air when it's on. Of course, you can't turn it on, you can't turn it off. But when it's on, it's not Muktze. So this is something that a lot of people don't know. They're afraid to move all kinds of electrical appliances, even if it's a Gufo Mekomo, because sometimes they're very expensive. So it's you can't move for permissible uses or because you need the location. But we're saying it doesn't matter. If it's very expensive, no matter what, it's not Muktze per se.
Can I ask a question, please? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
We have in our bedrooms radiators that are plugged into the wall on wheels.
Right.
Would you be allowed to move them?
Okay, those are a little bit more problematic because the question is, how do they heat up? What goes on inside is either a gas or water.
I think it's oil heaters. I think they're
It's
oil.
What?
I think
oil?
they're
oil.
I think
Could be
they're
oil.
oil.
Okay, oil, right? So there's some type of heating element in them that heats up that oil, and then it exhilarates heat to the room, in the room. So the question is there the burning element there that makes the oil hot? Is it a filament wire or not? Or is it somehow some other way of generating heat into the oil? I have to check that one. That's a good question. You know what? Let me check at this moment in this book. If it's not here.
I've got another question related to it because I worry as well that if it's on like I'm very untechnological. Sorry everyone for having to listen to me. I worry that if we move it, that also might affect the like when it gets to a certain temperature, it stops. It maintains the heat, but it doesn't continue the heating process. So let's say if I move it and now that part of the room is a tiny bit colder, maybe it affects, maybe it like reignites the process of heating. I don't know any technical words, I'm sorry, but I don't know if you know what I mean, that it's no longer a passive, I don't know if it is, but I suspect, for example, if I was to move it next to my bathroom door, and and there's a window open in the bathroom, and as I move it nearer there's like a gust of wind, and then that affects the temperature. It's detecting that perhaps it would begin like heating
again. Up again.
I'm mainly thinking sometimes I need to move it because I'm worried about the children knocking into it if they wake up in the night, or I'm not like moving. It's plugged in, so it can't move like real distances, obviously, but it can be moved inches to and from, to just not be hazardous.
Yes. I understand exactly what you're saying. I wouldn't think that it's that sensitive that the moment you move it somewhere closer to cool air, it will start activating the electrical heating process again. Why does it have to be immediate? The moment if you move it somewhere, it doesn't happen immediately that it starts working. Rather, it takes it a few minutes or even half a minute to realize, quote unquote, that the air is cooler around, and then start activating the electrical heating process. That's not considered a problem. Why is that not a problem? Because that's grama, that's indirect. You're causing it to work indirectly. It's not immediately when you're moving somewhere. Just by the fact that you moved it to a cooler area, cooler space, then it will detect it in a few moments, and then it will start working on its own. So it's not considered you turned it on. You caused it indirectly by putting it in a cold area to turn itself on. That's grama. That's called grama. That's one point. And the other is it's also here psik ratio the nichale. Here you're in. I was going to say you're not interested in all this, but you are interested because, well, actually it depends. If you move it away just because you don't want the kids to get hurt, so you're not really interested for it to reactivate itself in the new location. All you wanted to do is move it away for them not to get hurt. So if you don't care for it to reenact itself and start heating up the system again, that's called psikresha de lo nichale. You're not interested in it. It's going to happen no matter what, but you're not interested. And it's grama. Both together. The fact that you're not interested in happening and the fact that it's indirect make it permissible to do on Shabbat. Again, Shlomo Zalman says this very clearly. I'll give you another example where he discusses this whole issue. By a refrigerator door, besides when you open the door, besides the light that may turn on and off, so you have to deactivate the light, the bulb before Shabbat. But besides that, at least in the older type fridges, and nowadays it's more complicated because it's a whole computer system, it's computerized. But once upon a time, all it was that it had a detector, a sensor, to see how cool or warm the air is in the fridge, and then it turned on the motor to cool off the air. A thermostat. So there was talk, I'm talking about 30, 40, 50 years ago, there was talk, if one opens the refrigerator door, right now, the air inside the refrigerator is cool enough that it doesn't have to work. The refrigerator is fine, maintains the cool air perfectly fine. Now that you've opened the door, you've let some warm air into the fridge. All you did is you want to take something out. But in the meantime, some warm air came into the fridge. And then when you close the door, it detects, the thermostat detects that the air in the fridge is a little bit too warm. And then it activates the motor in order to cool off the air in the refrigerator. That's exactly the same situation that Laura described before with the radiator. And Shlomo Zalman allowed opening the refrigerator door even when it's not working. Even if right now the motor is off because the air there is cool enough. And by opening the door, it's a definite situation of allowing warm air into the refrigerator, which in turn leads to a definite activation of the motor in order to cool off the air. And yet he allowed doing so because it's grama, the psikresha de lo nichale. You don't care if it remains with a little bit of warm air that came into the fridge. That won't spoil your food. It's just extra sensitive. The thermos says extra sensitive that it has to always keep the air in a certain cool degrees. So anyway, that's allowed. But your first question, whether you're allowed to move altogether the radiator, because the Muktze I just found in the book, Tiltul Me'avrer, Radiator, Chimum, Plata, Meicham. He discusses in the book all these different types of electrical appliances: a fan, a radiator, a plata, or a hot plate, and Meicham, the boiling water kettle, or the urn. All these types, can you move them on Shabbat or not? So let's see what he says. Me'avrer we did already. Yes, he says, besides the fan, all the rest that he listed here, a radiator, a plata, and an urn, all three of them, yesh gufei chimum or chutei lat. All three of them have filament wires in them that create the heat. That's the heating element in them. And filament, we said before, is hav'ara. We said that that's burning. That's real, like a real fire inside. And so what is that? We're not turning it on or off. What does that have to do with moving it? So the idea is, according to the Gemara, it's Muktze Ahmad Gufo. Yeah, it's like a fire where it creates the entire appliance to be Muktze Ahmad Gufo, which is the most stringent Muktze. That you can't even move it. It's so Gufo Makomo, not because it's bothering you where it is, and not because if you want to use it in a permissible way. Wait. I misread this. Sorry, misread this. Sorry. In the meantime, in the beginning of this section here, he's questioning. He says, Din tiltulam talui ha'im gufei chimum mitadmim machmat chom or shenam mitadmim. He says it depends which type of device you have. If it's a type that if there's a filament wire inside and it gets red, then it's Muktze Ahmad Gufo, as we said before. The entire object is totally Muktze. If it doesn't have that type of element in it, and there's no filament wires, and it doesn't get red, it has a different technique of warming up the air or whatever is inside it, then it's Krishat Isu, and then you can do it Tzol Gufo Mekomo. Then you can move it for a permissible need or for to get it away from where it's located. So a spiral spiral heater is definitely has red, the wires get red, and therefore that's Muktze Ahmad Gufo, you mustn't move it at all. Plata also has inside, it's covered, but inside it has filament wires that get red, and therefore it's also Muktze Ahmad Gufo. Meicham, Chashmali Matzav Shabbat, if you have the urn that's on Matzav Shabbat, V'chen radiato, af shem chomei chumum, agufei chumum lo mitadmim. Oh, great! So we have a leniency here. He says the urn and the radiator, although they have this heating element inside them that consists of that projects heat into these machines, yet it doesn't redden. They do not become red. You are allowed to move it. So according to this, he says it's all Gufo Mekomo because he holds, Rav Ophir Malka in this book holds, unlike Rav Shlomo Zalman and Rav Moshe Feinstein, he holds that any electrical appliance that's run by electricity is automatically It's the most lenient type Muktze, but it's still Muktze. You can only move it for a permissible need or because the location is bothering you. So in your case, Laura, even according to a film, you can move it away because the location is bothering you because you want the kids to get hurt. Even according to him, you're allowed to move it. According to Shlomo Zalman and Moshe Feinstein, you can move it for any reason because it's not Muktze at all. because it's not doing anything that's a malacha. All it is projecting hot air into the room. You can't use it in a non-permissible way, except for turning it on and off. That's true for every electrical appliance. Besides that, it just heats itself and projects hot air into the room. No malacha involved. That's not muktze at all. This is also true for electrical blanket. When it's on, so it has some heating element in it, but it doesn't redden. So it's not muktze at all. Okay. Okay. So great. So you've got your answer that you're allowed to move the radiator wherever you like and for any reason. You're welcome. Okay. I see time is up. So he summed up well different types of electrical appliances and when they are not muktze, and the question of electricity in general. What's the issue of using electricity, turning on and off electricity on Shabbat? Okay. All right, you know what? If we spoke about, I'll just do one more point here very, very quickly, because if we spoke about a fan, so we'll just do this point 1 second. We have in a fan, it used to be those revolving round ones. Now we have less and less of those types. There used to be, they had this type of button where you used to press it down so it was stuck. No, then it went turning around to different parts of the room. And when you pulled it up, it was stuck to in one direction only. Now that's a mechanical button. When you pull it up and push it down, it does something mechanical that catches or allows frees the fan to go around to wherever it needs. So that's allowed on Shabbat. You're allowed to both push it down so it can move all around, and you're allowed to pull it up so it's stuck in its place. Or the other way around. I don't remember already how it used to be because we don't have those types anymore. But that's allowed because it's all mechanical. And the fact that if it's stuck now to a certain direction, now you're pulling it in a way that it's going to go revolve all around the room. So it's a little bit more electricity that's being used. Because in order to move it to the sides, it needs a little bit more energy, more electricity. But that's a minute amount, and it's barely, and it's a continuation of what's anyway working. It's anyway working now. It's just continuing and getting more, using more electricity. That's not a problem. So that's allowed. But be aware that in the more modern types of fans, the button you press in order to make it revolve or the opposite is electronic. It does something electronic that makes it revolve or not, and that's not allowed on Shabbat. To press or to release, you're not allowed to touch it because that's like turning on something or turning off something. Electronic on Shabbat, that's definitely not allowed. Okay. By the way, speaking about this, and also there are those that are usually mounted on the wall where they have a string. You pull a string, and then it starts revolving around the room. And if you pull it again, it gets set to secure to a certain direction only. That's not allowed to pull or to do or undo on Shabbat because that works electrically. That's an electric device and not mechanical. Usually, you have to check each one specifically, but it could be that to make sure that it isn't. Okay, so that's it. So we finished for today. Have a Purim Sameach, a healthy and happy one. Mezat Hashem, to be able to get back to normal, even improve our lives after all this goes away. Okay, so take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you, Purim Sameach.
Very welcome. Bye-bye.